All right, folks. Thanks for checking out the video. I want to do something a little different today. I want to do some poll analysis for the 2024 presidential election, both the primaries and the general election. So we will start with the Republican side currently, where things stand. And we see here currently Donald Trump is in the aggregate, he's at 52.9%, with Ron DeSantis in second at 20.2%, Mike Pence at 5.3%, and a bunch of other candidates, including Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie, Glenn Youngkin, who's not even in the race, Asa Hutchinson, Larry Elder, uh, all polling at 3% or less. Now, we can see the trend line here between particularly Trump and DeSantis, who's seen at this point as the only candidate who had even an inkling of a chance of knocking off Donald Trump. At one point, he was within 15 points or so of Trump, and since about April, they've gone in opposite directions. Trump's gone up, DeSantis has gone down, and at this point, I don't see anything happening for DeSantis that will make up the ground that he needs to make up at this point. So the only people benefiting from a DeSantis campaign are consultants, apparatchiks, and so forth. Now, if we go on the Democrat side, we see here that Joe Biden is at about 62% in the aggregate, and Robert F. Kennedy is at about 15.6%, Marianne Williamson at 6.1%. Now, this is really, really bad for Joe Biden because typically, if you are the incumbent president, you have essentially no opposition, or at the most, you have token, almost non-existent opposition. Okay, so the fact that Joe Biden is at 62% among Democrats is not good for him. That's not a very good sign. Now, does that mean he's only going to get 62% of Democrats to vote for him in the general election? No, that's not the case. Obviously, most Democrats are still going to back him. But the fact that many Democrats at this stage have questions about Joe Biden says a lot about him and his presidency. In fact, you have to go all the way back to the 1992 Republican primary when George H.W. Bush was the incumbent to see anything close to a serious challenger to a sitting president. And in that case, George H.W. Bush still got 72.8% of the vote to Pat Buchanan, who got about 23% of the vote. So if we look at 1996, when Bill Clinton was an incumbent, he got over 89% of the vote in his primary. 2004, George W. Bush got over 98%. 2012, Barack Obama got over 90%. And in 2020, Donald Trump got just under 94%. So that puts into perspective how bad Joe Biden being at 62% really is. Now, obviously, that's the aggregate. So that's the average of all the recent polls. He's as high as 70 in Quinnipiac, and he's as low as 54 in something called the Messenger Harris X poll. So likely he's somewhere in that range, not necessarily at the high or the low end of things. So I thought that was very interesting. The fact that there's all this noise on the Republican side about Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, all these people, as if any of them pose a threat to securing the nomination. And you don't hardly hear anything about the Democrat side, where Joe Biden is essentially in the same position. I mean, at this point, he's just about as far ahead of Kennedy as Trump is ahead of DeSantis. If you look at the most recent polling, so it's just the way that the media portrays things. It's the way that they frame things, because of course they're going to run cover for Biden. They're not going to do anything to give Robert Kennedy Jr. any kind of momentum, any kind of publicity. He's going to have to fight and scratch and claw his way to getting as much attention, as much eyeballs on his campaign as possible, because the mainstream media is just not going to do it, because he's running against another Democrat, and he's saying things that in some cases, in most cases, goes against the establishment. So they're not going to want him to succeed. It's as simple as that. So, anyways, that's where things stand as of right now, which is June 18th, 2023. We will see if anything changes in the near or not too near future. Now, what do you all think? Are we headed towards a Trump versus Biden rematch? Do you think um, who do you think has a better chance of getting the nomination? Is it DeSantis on the Republican side, or is it Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the Democrat side? Now, if we look at the general election polling between Trump and Biden, currently in the aggregate, Trump has a 1.8 point lead on Biden, 45 to 43.2. Now, also, Biden, being an incumbent president, polling at 43.2% is not good. And some of these polls, he doesn't even crack 40%, which again, for him, not good. And we also have to remember, based on the Electoral College, Donald Trump quote unquote, lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton by, I believe, over 3 points in 2016, but he still won the election. So if Trump is winning this means Trump's winning the so-called popular vote. He would win by an even bigger electoral vote landslide at this point against Biden than he did against Hillary Clinton. Now, that goes completely against the narrative being spun by the mainstream media and by establishment Republicans that Trump can't win. He's he's a loser. He's this, that, and the other thing. Well, he's won the election before, so you can't take that away from him. And there's no evidence that he would be sure to lose against Biden. Now, I know, of course, they're going to try as many tricks and chicanery as they can in the next election, but at this point, Biden might be so unpopular that Trump's going to win beyond the margin of fraud. So let me know what you all think. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.